Hello again, this is Mike Brown with another edition of Legal Vaseline, and today we're going to discuss qualified immunity. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's the real reason there's so many cops on the line. It's actually not the fault of the cops, it's the fault of the courts, because the Supreme Court pulled this doctrine of qualified immunity out of thin air about 40 years ago, and what it holds is that if a cop or any other bureaucrat doesn't know that something is unconstitutional and they trample all over somebody, well, they get a free pass. You'll find case after case in which police have gotten completely out of line, and when they do and they get sued, then the people who sued them for excessive force arrest or whatever, well, they run into this, we didn't know that it was wrong, so therefore you can't be sued. Supreme Court doctrine. Now, one of the problems that we're having with all these riots and everything else is because of the courts, not because of the cops. In fact, what I'm going to do here in just a minute is I'm going to show you the difference between qualified immunity and what things should be in the court system. And I'm going to use words of judges themselves. But in the meantime, let me point something else out. Right at the moment, this is December of 2020, and we're having all this election kerfuffle. And I would like to point out that our present president promised to drain the swamp. And from what I've seen of some of the federal district court judges that he's appointed, he not only didn't drain the swamp, he threw in more alligators. Water level in the swamp has risen considerably since then. Now, what I would like to use as an example, let's leave the police out of the equation entirely. Let's use Department of Family Services. There's a really good case out of California for a gal named Nadia Sampson, S-A-M-P-S-O-N, and I will give you the docket number here in a minute, that everybody should read if they want to see what they're up against with this qualified immunity nonsense. And what the Supreme Court has held, well, if they didn't recognize it, then it doesn't exist, and so therefore the cop or the social worker can't be sued. Now, this particular case, this Nadia Sampson, this poor girl was in Nevada, and she moved to take care of her niece because the niece's parents were incarcerated. And what she wound up with, one of the social workers, some guy named Ahmed, I can't even pronounce his last name, apparently he was hitting on this girl for a number of months, tried to get her to take rides in his car, grabbed her, groped her, I guess, tried to tell her that she needed to divorce her husband. I guess Ahmed could slime her, all right? And this poor thing put up with this for months, finally took him to court, and instead of the other social workers disciplining this guy, they circled the wagons and warned her that they were going to retaliate if she did anything as far as reporting them. Well, finally got a lawyer, sued them in federal court, got thrown out in the Central District of California. For those of you unfortunate enough to live in California, in the Central District, Los Angeles, you might like to know that out of the hundreds of federal judges, the Roving Room, which is a website you can find fairly easily, lists the Central District of California as having 4 of the 10 worst judges in the United States. And of course, this poor girl drew one of them. He threw her out on qualified immunity. The Ninth Circuit reversed part of it. But here's the real kicker on this. What they missed in the court case was that these people in social services, in DFS, or whatever they're calling it in California this week, these people took her to court and they filed false affidavits, false complaints. At one point, they took the little girl who was the centerpiece of this squabble, and they just apparently abandoned her someplace with no food, little clothing, that sort of thing. I mean, these people were just a total bunch of scumbags. And here's what they missed. In every state in the union, they have statutes on the books and they're called offering a false instrument for filing. If you file a court paper and it's false, you can go to prison for it. And there's all sorts of people that found this out at the federal level when they filed liens on federal judges' homes that they didn't have a judgment for, and they wound up in the Gray Bar Hotel just almost immediately. So what I'm telling you is, and this is kind of a brief lecture here, but it's very simple. If you want to get rid of qualified immunity, Congress is going to have to do it because the Supreme Court created this nonsense. And as they point out in this particular case, in fact, let me give you the docket number of this case. The docket number of this case is 18-55450. It's in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and all you got to do is put in Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, SAMPSON, and hit the button, and it'll come right up. You'll get the whole case. And one of the things that I think it's important to see in this case is take a look at all this here. These are all the things that this Ahmed did to this poor girl, and the retaliation that his supervisors took, not against him for misbehaving, but against her from complaining in the first place. One of the things about this particular case is the judges in the case, the appellate court judges, they actually refer to the qualified immunity doctrine as ill-conceived, and they were completely correct. And they said, well, we're stuck with it because that's what the Supreme Court had to say. And of course, the Supreme Court is supposedly the highest legal authority, which I disabused you of that earlier in a different video. But if you really want to see how things are supposed to work, there was a case in Kentucky, 1935, R.C. Tway Coal Company versus Glenn, 12th volume of the Federal Supplements, page 570, go to page 587, Western District of Kentucky. And the judge there says the test of a statute is not by Supreme Court decisions, it's by the Constitution, regardless of Supreme Court decisions. And if more judges understood that today, we wouldn't be having all these problems with people burning down whole cities because the court system doesn't work. And one of the best books on the subject, if you really want to learn, let me back up here a minute. This R.C. Tway Coal Company, you can get it on the internet also. And the judge who authored it, I mean, this boy had his ball of twine together. He understood constitutional law much better than anybody we have today. There are some extra things you might want to consider. For example, closing the courthouse door by Erwin Chemerinsky, and he's mentioned in one of the footnotes in this case, in the Sampson case. And if you read this book, you'll see exactly what the Supreme Court has been doing wrong, literally for decades, and Congress needs to straighten out the Supreme Court, because Congress is a higher authority. I've pointed that out to you before, or we need to get rid of the people in Congress. So anyway, hope you learned something today, and next time you have a problem with a cop or a bureaucrat or somebody like that and you want to sue them, read the Sampson case, because it'll show you everything that's gone wrong and how to deal with it, what you have to avoid, what kind of arguments you can use, that sort of thing. It's a really good piece of work. In fact, actually, this case and this book should be mandatory reading for any member of Congress who has anything at all to do with the judicial system, and most of them have. So anyway, thanks for watching, and let's try to get rid of qualified immunity, because it's been introduced in Congress to be repealed twice, but of course, Congress, consisting of 96,000 pounds of lawyers, doesn't move very fast, but they need to move on this one. Thanks for watching.
What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time to take back the power. What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time to take back the power. What you gonna do when they show up in black suits on your street in army boots? And there's silence your rights